This is the Middle-earth philosopher. When Gimli sailed to Undying Lands with Legolas, did he ever meet Aule? Before jumping into this, just a brief recap here. The race was created back during the early years of the primordial first stage by the Valar Aule, who wanted to create something of his own. A life, not his own. However, after making the original 7 Dwarven fathers, Uru appeared and caught him basically in the act. Because they were not part of the original plan, the Dwarves were going to be destroyed by their creator before Uru decided to have mercy and graft them into his plan. Thus, the Dwarven fathers were spread out across Middle-earth to awaken sometime after the Elves. Because of all this, the Dwarves are said to revere Aule just as the Elves revere Yavanna for similar reasons. However, the enmity between the two races has famously led to an ancient and long-standing, complicated relationship between them. And when it came to perceptions of the afterlife, while the Elves held that they would be reincarnated in or have their spirits sent back to Valinor if they were killed or if they died for whatever reason, they also held that the Dwarves simply stopped existing beyond the point of death. A toy that had its switch shut off and suddenly goes dead. The Dwarves were, however, more optimistic, believing that there was a special place in the halls of Mandos where their creator would gather them and be ready to rebuild the world after the end of everything. So, now we got that out of the way, this question was inspired by a post I saw on Facebook. And the friendship of Gimli and Legolas is already unusual because of the complicated and often hostile nature of the Dwarven and Sylvan elf cultures. And that Legolas took his longtime friend with him over the sea into the west is another unusual point in this relation between the two races. Something completely unheard of. But the question of Gimli being the only dwarf to set eyes on the creator of his race while he was still alive, I think would, or at least should, rocket him to beyond legendary status. And it's ironic that this question never, or at least rarely ever comes up when discussing Gimli, the Dwarves, or Aule for that matter. Given that most fans would talk all day and more about the fate of men and elven reincarnation and such. And it's sad to me that Tolkien doesn't really dive more into this or explore the idea of Aule somehow getting the news that one of his creations was allowed to make the journey west. I mean, we all know that the Dwarves were kind of almost an afterthought compared to the elves and human beings, but I mean, I would think that this would make the Valar excited beyond measure, since he hasn't seen what became of the race that he made since he set their ancestors in their resting places timeless ages ago. Who better than Gimli, who was a dwarf through and through, and yet equally has overcome all their historical negative traits, and become one of the most renowned warriors of the Third Age, to act as an ambassador of his people to Aule as well as the rest of Valinor, to show what this afterthought of a race had become, that they became a great people and made themselves worthy of carrying on the spirit of fire that Uru placed in them, to be respected equally among elves and men, regardless if they're immortal or not. That Gimli could represent and show Aule and Yavanna that their creations could make peace with each other, given that there was some ancient enmity between them because of the Dwarven need to build things and the harm that would bring to nature, and how Yavanna was not happy with that. In a sense, Gimli is the Dwarven version of Earendil, and I think he deserves much more respect because of that. And like I said earlier, it's something I wish Tolkien had delved more into in terms of if and when Aule would go to visit this descendant of one of his greatest creations, the Dwarves. And more than anything, I think Aule needed a win because, let's face it, as I said in an earlier video, I think he had a reputation among Valinor of just kind of being a screw-up in a way, because two of the greatest failures that happened in the history of Middle-earth happened on his watch. that of Fëanor and Saruman, both of whom were responsible for great tragedies as we know already, but had in some way, shape, or form been tutored or been under tutelage of Aule himself. So I think it would be good for him to see, not just know, but to see and understand that he did something right, and that it wasn't just a minor little thing that he did right, but a major thing that he did right, because of the legacy that Gimli earned in his battles and journeys across Middle-earth. But having said all that, this is the Miller Philosopher, and let me know what you think below. Thanks.